Um, Thank you, Las Corla. Taoiseach, last week we all learned of the tragic death of Micheál Martin TD in Middleton, a young 2-year-old child, and our deepest sympathies go to his parents and family. And the circumstances surrounding this death has caused very significant concern in the East Cork area, because when a neighbour rang for an ambulance, well-known neighbour, known to many, he was told there was no ambulance available to come to the scene. And indeed, there was no paramedic dispatched to the scene either. Now, I welcome the fact that the HSE has set up a review group to inquire into all the circumstances surrounding the call and the circumstances surrounding the fact that this child ultimately was transported to hospital in the back of the neighbour's car. There was a similar incident, Taoiseach, in the town some weeks earlier, when another young child was tragically drowned. And again, there are competing issues, but there was concern in terms of the time and the timing it took for the ambulance on that occasion to get to the scene. And more we're hearing around the country that these are not isolated situations, that there's concerns across the country about the adequacy of the ambulance services, and above all, the response times in getting to emergency, life-threatening situations. The Midland region, Galway, and so forth. In Carlow, we had a well-known incident some time back where a young minor footballer took 7 hours and 3 ambulances later before he was actually brought to the hospital for treatment. Drogheda, a year before that, a man was left for 25 minutes on the street before he was attended to. In March of this year, a Garda was asked to drive an ambulance to Letterkenny General Hospital because no paramedic was available. The last April, 12 months, it was revealed that almost half of ambulances sent out on life-saving cardiac emergencies are failing to reach patients within strictly set target times.
Thank you, Deputy.
And 8 minutes being the target time. Now, the Minister, Riley, in February of this year, he said he was going to abandon national targets for the response times by which an ambulance should be dispatched to life and death situations. Now, this came weeks after HECRA had increased its target for response times. So the Minister said he wants to abandon all national targets and was going to do that. Why he would even contemplate that, I don't know. And there are separate targets, Taoiseachs, for first responders, of emergency medical technicians who would be dispatched in advance of the ambulances, and those targets aren't being met either. The fundamental question I want to put to you, Taoiseach, is given all of these incidents and episodes that have occurred, I think there's a fundamental need for a very comprehensive review of our ambulance service. And I'm going to ask you the question, are you satisfied that our national ambulance service is adequately covered or resourced to deliver the service that actually is required? Do we have enough ambulances simply in place across the country? Do we have enough emergency medical technicians, qualified emergency medical technicians in place across the country? We all know about the golden hour in terms of early intervention and getting to a scene where life and death is at stake. It can be obviously crucial in terms of ensuring the survival of any individual caught up in a situation like this. I do believe sincerely that there's enough evidence there to suggest that we all have reasons to be very concerned about the adequacy of cover. And I think it's more than just a review into a specific incident that's required. I think we need reassurance from you, Taoiseach, that you and the government are satisfied that the resources are in place to meet the requirements.
Thank you, Deputy. Taoiseach.
Well, first of all, I want to say that my sympathies and those of the government go to the parents of the young child who died as a result of this incident. I heard the report from Kevin Hennessy on the radio as a well-known neighbour and the work that he did there. These are always tragic cases, and nothing that we say or do here can bring back that child to his parents. I want you to know, Deputy Martin, that the incident that occurred here has been escalated to the HSE's serious incident management team. Following preliminary inquiries into this tragic incident, the National Ambulance Service, in line with the HSE incident review methodology, has commissioned an incident review into the fact that a 999 call was received at 1400 hours or 2 o'clock on the 6th of May 2013, and how in effect that was managed. And the review team has asked for a preliminary report on this as a matter of urgency, to be followed by a full report. I might say that obviously the National Ambulance Service had its own liaison officer liaise with the family. Emergency ambulances in East Cork, as you're probably aware, are strategically deployed. In other words, they're no longer tied to any particular station, but are applied where they're most likely to be required. In addition, country boundaries no longer apply. The nearest emergency ambulance responds regardless of its origin. And I should say that there has been no loss in the National Ambulance Service in East Cork. In fact, it has been enhanced. The previous situation saw 4 nights a week where paramedics were responding to calls after 2000 hours or 8 p.m. from their homes as they were working on call. In 2012, this system successfully changed to an on-duty rota, where paramedics are rostered on duty 24/7, and the on-call system was eliminated. So I think it's important to ascertain the true facts insofar as the handling of the emergency call was concerned. Let's get those facts accurately from the incident team. In regard to other incidents around the country, the situation insofar as the National Ambulance Service is constantly monitored and reviewed. And obviously, when incidents like this tragic case come to light, it is fundamentally important to see what the response was and why that response was made in this particular case. So I'd respectfully suggest to the Deputy, let's wait and get the report from the HSE Serious Incident Management Team, and then, and it won't bring back the little child, see how the 999 call was managed. And given the improvement in the situation with ambulance services in East Cork, why this particular situation followed through in the way that it did.
Margaret Taoiseach, a supplementary question from Deputy Martin.
Teacher, I think you need to be very careful about using words like services enhanced or improved, because there's no sense of that in the community affected. And I say that to you honestly. People now are very concerned about the next incident in terms of what will happen, because they just don't believe that there's an adequate service there. And recent tragic experiences have brought them to that very sad conclusion. But that is the reality, teacher. And, you know, having spoken to people on the ground there, their concern is, will there be an ambulance on time, God forbid, of another life and death situation occurring in the East Cork region. But the other incidents I outlined here suggest, Taoiseach, that the department and the minister needs to go back and fundamentally ask some hard questions in terms of the adequacy of the service. We are hearing reports about overworked ambulance crews, overstressed, that the National Ambulance Service is at the pin of its collar to meet the demands that are being placed upon it. And we may talk about the changes that occurred and so on, but clearly, in many instances, those changes are not working. And this is, I'm not just saying it, I mean, I've instanced for you the research that was undertaken nationally, where only half were reaching the targets that were set nationally. Those are not my figures, and they're objectively ascertained figures that the Minister himself acknowledged over a year ago.
Thank you, Deputy.
But very little has happened since then in terms of enhancing or improving the situation. I believe, Taoiseach, and the reports I'm hearing from deputies in their own regions, that the changes are not working, that people don't experience an enhanced service by any stretch of the imagination, and that the service is not adequately resourced. We do not have enough emergency medical technicians. We do not have enough ambulances in place to meet, and particularly where there's been significant demographic and population changes, very dramatic changes in recent times. And then we have the issue of dispersed rural communities as well. And that the adequacy is something that you should go back and look at fundamentally. And I would ask you, in the light of what has happened, to do that, and to be in a position to provide evidence that you can give genuine reassurance to people who are very anxious and concerned now about the adequacy of our ambulance service and whether it's fit for purpose or whether it has the resources in terms of personnel and in terms of plant and equipment and ambulance vans to actually meet the demands of the society today and the level of demand that is occurring on a daily basis. I don't think the people have that confidence at the moment.
Thank you, Deputy Martin. I now call on Taoiseach final reply on this
issue. In the vast majority of cases, the response of the National Ambulance Service is up to the standard that's expected. In this particular case, one that we know of, where a child fell from a window and died, as I said, nothing will bring that child back. But it is important here that we ascertain what the facts are. What happened after the 999 call was made at 2 p.m. It's important that we get the facts of the sequence of events that meant that an ambulance was not dispatched when I understand an ambulance was available to deal with this particular incident. When I say that services were enhanced in East Cork, Deputy Martin, what I mean by that is that the ambulances are no longer tied to any particular ambulance centre, that they are enabled to travel to wherever the need is, well, let's examine it, wherever the need is. And the second point is that paramedics up until 2012 were on call and they answered calls after 8 p.m. from their own homes on a non-call basis. That roster was changed to where they are now on duty 24/7, which should, you would think, provide an enhanced service. So again, let me say that we have no difficulty when the facts of the matter come to light here to bring it back to the House here and let everybody know. And as a matter of interest, I take your point. I take your point about the requirement for people to have confidence in and trust in the National Ambulance Service. And from that perspective, I've already asked the Minister for Health to see that a report is published both in general in respect of the response times nationally, but particularly arising from the high-risk management team here, arising from this particularly sad case.